Very good. Yes, so today we will do the Penetrator presentation so your customer can get a very good idea about the Penetrator. First of all, the Penetrator is available in different formats. The customer can get physical appliance. If everybody can see my camera, we have here hardware boxes, small form factor. We have 1U rack mountable, and we have software virtualized format for different services right here. We can see the customer can download the laptop edition that is running for VMware Player or on macOS VMware Fuse, for example. There are different platforms supported, also Linux. The customer can download the VMware ESXi server, and we have new January 2021 images available for all platforms. If your customer has a Microsoft environment, we support Microsoft Hyper-V, and we also support Microsoft Azure server, so they can download this version as well. And if the customer just want the Linux version, that is possible as well. So they can actually get the raw Penetrator, or they can get virtualized by Microsoft or VMware, depending on how the customer prefers it. Another very good thing is we just released the new version 49 of the Penetrator, upgrading from version 48. And the customer can see here there are more than 25 new updates in the Penetrator, and it is very easy for the customer to upgrade to the new version. They can just press one button and it automatically upgrades for the customer. In the new version, it has new features, and the new features are shown in the release document. We have very good documentation when there's a new software update. So the customer can see exactly what he get in the new version. With many other systems, when they have a new software, they never tell you what is new. If you have Skype or Windows, it just says updates. You don't know what they're doing. Here, the customer can see exactly what they're getting. In the new version, for example, we are getting an autonomous sonar robot. It explains here exactly the new features, benefits. There's a new onboard firewall in the Penetrator. And again, it shows here very much in detail. There are new languages added, Georgian and French, and then there are much more detailed changelog right here. So the customer know exactly before they upgrade, and they can decide if they want to upgrade. Now we are just looking here in a system we have running, and we can see this system here have about 34,000 scans. So you can actually scan very large networks with a Penetrator. It is designed for high performance and to be very user-friendly for the customer. First of all, we go in new vulnerability scanner menu, and we can actually go to scan templates where we can create a scanning template. So next time the customer wants to scan or do a schedule, it's much easier, and they don't have to type all information. So for example, if we make a new template name, we call it New Year 2020, we can put in our email address for notifications, and let's say we put in support@secpoint.com. The customer can choose how they want notifications when a scan has finished. They can always get an email, they can never get an email, or they can just get when new vulnerabilities are discovered. They can also decide to add the report in the email. This is not so secure, so it's actually better not to do this. Let's say we put here node, public, side, and internal network. Easily we click on next, and here we can add the scan targets we want. It could be, for example, a website, public site, and it can be internal networks as well. So it is very easily to create the scanning template, and the customer can actually see here different scanning templates depending on their requirements. If they are not sure what is the difference on the scanning templates, for example, if they do full scan here, they can actually drag the mouse and it will show more in details what is included in the scanning profiles. We also have a document in the partner portal right here. We have a full document data sheet for the customer about the scanning profiles right here, so the customer can get very detailed information. If they are not sure which one is best, they can also contact our support team and they can help guide the customer. In most cases, it's designed for 90% of all scans that the best scan, most popular scan is the best because it's what most people choose by default. When the customer, for example, choose a WordPress scan or a web scan, it will narrow down the scan so it will be faster, but it will not scan as many things. So in most cases, it's recommended to use the best scan. It is also possible to use aggressive scan where the penetrator can launch denial of service attacks, so you can do more heavy attacks, crashing systems. Let's say you want to scan a pre-production server and you want to hit it hard. You can actually do that. If you want to scan just production environments, it's also recommended best scan. It's designed not to crash any systems. For example, if it's a hospital or school or government office, you want everything running smoothly. You don't want to crash systems. When we go right here, the next page, you can also decide advanced setup. And in advanced setup, you can do different things. First of all, you can force vulnerability scans on targets. Some systems, they have a firewall and they are trying to hide there's a system available on an IP if it's blocking ping, if it's blocking common ports. And this way you can actually force the penetrator to keep scanning even if it is not detecting a system. So if you are scanning a stealth system, you can scan it anyway. You can also add specific ports. Let's say you are scanning a website and you just want to add port 80 and 443, for example. But this is actually not recommended. It is recommended you scan for all the ports the penetrator scan for, because it can be the customer has a web server on common ports, but they have some other service running on another port they are not aware about. And then hackers can get in via other services. So it's actually recommended to do bigger scans every time. Like if you go in hospital with the doctor and they only check your hand, but maybe there's something wrong in the rest of the body. So it's better they check everything than only the hand. You want to check everything. Attackers are getting very, very creative and they will find many other ways to get in to a system. You can also put in specific directories. Let's say it's a web server and the customer have their own admin area or secret areas. For example, secret directory admin could be, and they can easily add this as well. It could also be, for example, it's called interface admin, where they do the CMS management. So the penetrator can actually target specific directories, like if it's a penetration test. You can also add virtual hosts if you are hosted in an internet provider and they have maybe 100 domains on one IP address, one server, 100 domains. It can scan each one individually. You can also add here username, password credentials for common services like FTP, NetBIOS services, could be admin. And let's say we put in here a default test 2000 password, for example, so you can add this as well. And you can add overflow attacks, denial of service, and extended brute force if the customer prefers this. And if we put in here admin for the username, and then it can actually target. The more usernames you put in and passwords, it will also impact the scanning time because it needs to scan everything and it needs to use the new username and password along with the database it already has by default. So it can impact scanning time. We can enable denial of service, and then we can click on close here. And now we can actually see there's a warning because denial of service has been enabled, so the customer is aware there can be interruption in the system. So maybe we don't want to enable that, and we can simply click advanced again and disable it. So if we are scanning a production system, we don't want to enable aggressive scan. Then we click on close, and we click save a vulnerability scan template. And now, because we have the template, we can actually see here we have many test templates. It's now very easy. For example, if we go to schedule, and we can simply create a new schedule and choose the existing template. Here, the new year 2020, and it already has what we want to scan, so it's very easy. Let's say we want to scan on a weekly basis. We want every week to scan everything. It could also be we want on a specific date or a specific time, depending on how the customer requirements are. You can put a start date and repeat it every X amount of days. So it depends on most customers typically put a weekly, could be Sunday or Monday, and then they put in the time they want to start, for example, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they have fresh reports when they are coming in. It is also possible on the Penetrator right here, you can easily download reports from the system. So now we have here a lot of scans on this system, 34,000. Soon it's 2021. It can be the customer want to download everything from the last year, and then they can very easily specify here the start date. It could be, let's say we take 1st of January, and when we are in January next year, we want to download everything from 2020. Easily, customer can do this. Click one button, and then it can download everything. So they can very, very easily do backup. It's also possible in the system and to do backup of the entire configurations and setups and scan profiles in the system as well. So they can do one-click operation and create configuration backup, because it can be you have many configurations. You have here schedules. Here we have many different schedules. We have many templates, and it can also be many users the customer have. If something happens with the system, you want to have backup of everything as well. And here again, we have a lot. Let's say we don't want to lose all our data, all our settings, and that's why we have very, very easily one-click backup operation. And we can just click right here. And then, of course, if your unit needs to be replaced or have another installation, you can easily just import the backup file. So it is very easy that way. So it's easy to get data out of Penetrator. It's easy to do backup, and it's very recommended to do backup once in a while. So you don't have to type in all data again. So that is very, very good. We just had another join in, Sentido, if you can hear us. Okay, so now here also in the vulnerability scan menu, the customer can, they have other specific things. They can do port scan, they can add false positives to the system. And actually, one of the very key strengths in the Penetrator we added about 2 or 3 years ago was that it has a very strong AI machine learning capability. In old times, if you're scanning a website and the target system give wrong reply, the system can be tricked to think there are some vulnerabilities that don't exist. And this is called false positives. And before, you need to have an engineer to verify vulnerabilities, to check the output, check everything is correct. But now we can do this with AI machine learning, much, much, much faster and much more effective. So it means the more your penetrator is scanning, the more he's learning. So more scanning, more learning. And AI machine learning data is only on your customer's unit. It's not going in the cloud or going to Secpoint or third party, everything stays at customer location in your country. It's not going in Europe or in America and China. Everything is on the unit at customer location. And this is very important when it comes to privacy settings. We're seeing now more with America, we're seeing with China, we're seeing with Russia, in the Israel countries, they are collecting data. They take the data from the customer. They even say if you're running Windows, every time you save a settings, it's being encrypted and sent in the cloud to Microsoft so they can spy on the users, everything they're doing. In the Penetrator, we have a very clear privacy policy. So customer have full control about which data is being accessed by Secpoint, which data we are allowed to collect. For example, there's permanently disabled IP address collection, metadata collection, user configuration. The only data we are allowed to collect is if there is a crash on the system or if there is a fault in the reporting system. And this customer can disable. If they don't want we collect this data, they can easily disable it. The Penetrator runs a Linux system, so they can actually verify underneath in the system that no data is being collected. They can actually get access in the terminal, and then they can easily verify that no data is being sent out of the unit. For example, if they put in a packet sniffer, and this is very, very important. And we are seeing that now I'll just show you the terminal on the system actually, so you can see how it looks like. It is possible for the customer, you can see right here. You can get in the Linux where there's a system console, and here customer can upgrade Linux kernel. They can do more things. They reset the network interface, clean logs, do factory resets, check for kernel vulnerabilities. They can actually do a lot of things. So we give customer very, very much control about the system. Many other systems, you only have very little control and you don't know which data they are collecting. If we go back here to the scan, we can actually see a clear example about the AI machine learning we have right here. We have a very big example here where the system find 15 high risk, 113 medium risk, and 7,513 information checks. And this, of course, looks not correct. So if you're a human, you can right away see, there's some problem here. We need to investigate it. But now the robot can do it automatically. So we see now after AI robot process automatically, we can now look here in the menu. And now we see we have 6 high risk. Before we had 15, we have 26 medium, before we had 113, and we have 3 low risk, and that was the same before. And we now, before we had 7,513 information checks, now we have 28. So now it looks really, really accurate. Where before it was very clear it was some fault with the report. But now the system can actually perfect the results automatically. And this is very powerful. The customer can also have some settings configuration here for the AI learning. They can reset the database, they can fine tune the parameters, but it's already very good by the default settings. And it's running the 3rd generation of the AI machine learning. So it's very, very fast and very, very accurate. In the beginning, it was very slow. If you had to process very big scans, it could take a long time. Now it processes very, very fast. So the customer will not notice any slowness. And that's the most important. We can also take a look here in the reporting system, and the reporting on the Penetrator is very, very strong. You have here a report branding capability as well. The customer can change the logo in the reports, they can change the link to website, they can add different sections in the report, table of contents, they can change the language. We're now supporting 19 languages, almost 20, and this way it is easy for the customer to change to different languages how they prefer it. They can change the watermark as well. So here we have a confidential watermark, and they can put in custom text. The reporting on the Penetrator is very, very strong. And it's available in different formats. The customer can get consultancy report, they can get PDF version, they can get HTML, technical report, they can download all reports in zip file, so they can very easily give it to the technicians, and they can get the format of the report they prefer. If we take a look right here in the PDF report, we can see it's coming just right here. You see you have the front page where the logo can be customized very easily, and you see here you have a watermark as well. You have the company name, and that appears on every page. Then you have here table of contents, you have introduction, security levels, and the executive summary, where it tells more in detail the overall security risk level, and it also tells the overall vulnerability risk level. So the manager, he just knows without the technical, he knows, okay, this site has high risk, we need to do something about it. If we go down here, we can see there are more technical output for the engineers, operating system guests. We have identified ports and services, version banners. So this way, the customer can easily verify vulnerabilities, fix the vulnerabilities, rerun the scan, and again see if they can reproduce the vulnerabilities. So that is very powerful. The customer can actually also utilize the onboard false positive system to remove vulnerabilities easily. And they can just, let's say we have here system time information check, and we don't care about this. We can click on the globus here, and then it will remove it for the whole system. So we have 34,000 scans, and we don't want to have this information check. One click, you can remove from 34,000 scans. After the AI machine learning system, it's basically taking care of false positives automatically. So after we have AI, not so many have to, you don't have to do so much in false positive, because it goes very, very automatic, everything. And we really want to make the system as easy as possible for the administrator. We also have here a new feature in the latest version, version 49, and this is the autonomous sonar robot. And what it means is you deploy your scanning template just like in the other places, for example, New Year, and then the penetrator, if you have it in a local network, it can scan the local network, and then it knows all the system you have. And if somebody comes to the network, connect a new laptop, smartphone, tablet, any device, the penetrator can automatically know there's a new device and scan it automatically instantly. So it can check every 5 minutes the whole network, and every time a new device, it find it, scan it. Because when you set up a schedule, maybe you only set the schedule on a weekly basis. And let's say you have a hacker, connecting in, and here you set a weekly schedule. Let's say you have a hacker connecting. You want to know it very fast. You want to see there was a laptop today, 30th December, have a scan of it so you have evidence. It could also be you have an accounting management, an accounting woman who do all the papers, the bookings of the company, because now it's the end of the year, they must do all the papers. And maybe her laptop is open to information leaking, maybe the database is leaking or sensitive data is leaking from her laptop. And this way, the penetrator can very easily find out as well. And this happens automatically. So the autonomous sonar robot is very powerful in that regards. And we can also take a look here. If we go here in the menu here, you can simply select the scan template. You can exclude a target. You can make a new template just for the internal network. Maybe you only want a specific section of the internal network to be monitored. So it is very easy as well. Then we have some other areas like statistics information. We will not go so much into. We have also the ticket system. And the idea with the ticketing system is that the manager at the customer location, they can actually assign vulnerabilities to technicians, so they can have a due date when the vulnerabilities must be fixed. And this way, the manager can keep control on that the technicians are actually fixing the vulnerabilities and follow up by a due date, because many times it takes time to fix vulnerabilities. And they can decide here to add, maybe they only want to add the most important vulnerabilities. They don't care about low risk vulnerabilities, and easily they can add this as well to the system. And then of course the manager, he can go in, show open tickets, and if they're overdue, he can follow up. He can actually also get notifications automatically from the penetrator, also when the vulnerabilities are fixed, because when it's scanning again on the next schedule, then it is possible for the customer to see if it has been resolved. Many times the big problem is to fix found vulnerabilities. Customers know they have vulnerabilities and they need to schedule when to upgrade the web servers, when to upgrade, do firewall reconfiguration, and this way the penetrator will actually help the customer automatically. Another very powerful thing on the penetrator, and this is a big risk area because we see a lot of customers being hacked by Wi-Fi. You have attackers driving by the company. We support powerful Wi-Fi adapters. They're about different chipsets. We have a guide which chipsets are supported. They need to be able to do injection and packet capture, so you can do realistic attacks on the Wi-Fi network. It has 7 different techniques, so you can do same attacks as attackers would do. Many customers have weak Wi-Fi networks without good encryption, without good passwords, older systems. It can be embedded in equipment, projectors in the meeting room. It can be even smart TVs. There can be many devices that open a Wi-Fi network. You can have very cheap routers the customer have deployed. Let's say it's a factory or production site, and they have it just a Wi-Fi network for some engineers, but it can very easily be hacked, for example. And this way, the penetrator allows you to find out easily what the vulnerabilities are. And again, you get a PDF report, so you have clear documentation if the network could be compromised. And here again, you can change the logo, you can change the name, and the watermark in the report as well. So this way it is very, very powerful. And you can also do Wi-Fi pen testing by doing denial of service to take down the entire Wi-Fi networks. So this way it's very, very strong for Wi-Fi pen testing as well. Then another thing we also introduce in the latest version we don't have in the earlier versions, that is the customer can now manage the onboard firewall in the penetrator. So if somebody try and hack your penetrator, the penetrator has its own firewall to block attacks coming in, because hackers will hack anything. Of course, they will target anything they can find. And one very good thing we have here is one click, you can block 640 million toxic IPs from even be able to access the penetrator. And this 640 million toxic IPs is about 10% of the whole internet. It's a combination of 12 block lists, 10 or 12 block lists combined together, updated on a daily basis, and then it makes a huge list of toxic IPs that you don't want to even have access to connect to the penetrator. And in the future, you will get more and more configuration in the firewall, so you can really, really harden your penetrator if somebody try and hack your penetrator. And also when it comes to the next area here it is possible to have multiple users on the penetrator. It could be you have different departments. Here we have many test users. In this case here, you can create new, and you can actually create multiple managers or admins how you want it. You can choose admin privileges, you can enable, disable, put in expire date, so you can put scannable IPs. Maybe there are some department only allowed to scan one segment. You can restrict scanning IPs, so it's actually very advanced. You can do all the scanning on the penetrator, and all the data will stay in your location. And when you have multiple users, only the specific user can access the specific data of their account. So this way it's very, very secure. Also, it comes into with node scanning, and with node scanning, it is possible It could be the customer have multiple locations. They can actually deploy multiple appliances in different locations, multiple software installations, and then they can actually control it from a centralized setup. For example, in Node Penetrator right here, it could be we add maybe here we just put an example IP host name. It could be berlin.secpoint.com, and we can say here this is Berlin node. So it could be we have an office in Berlin and we want to scan the office in Berlin and control everything from the main unit. It doesn't matter if they have appliance or software version. The idea is it's more easy for the user, no matter which way they want to do it. Also, we can take a look here if we go. One key indicator, if we look here in the network setup, if you have the virtual edition, or you have a 1U rack, or you have here the small form factor. If we see here on the small form factor, we actually have 4 network ports. The last one is a COM port. On the rack appliances, we have 6 network ports. And this is interesting because you can have more scanning throughput performance. So you can actually utilize more ports on the penetrator. You see on this appliance right here, it's only using 1 port, but you can actually go in other network adapters. And then when you have more ports available, if you have virtual edition, you can add more network adapters. Then you can easily have more network interfaces to run much more data out, scanning different segments. And the customer have control over the different network interfaces. This is also a new feature. And if we look here in the IP setup, here the customer can put a static IP, or they can easily put a DHCP IP. And if we go back in the system console, you can do things like setting IP address also just from the console right here. So it depends on how the customer wants to do the configuration. Here they easily can do it as well. Let's say you only have the keyboard access locally before you log into the web interface. You can easily do this here as well. So you can easily get online no matter where you are. If we take a look here in the update menu that we talked a little about before, the customer have a lot of control, and you can enable or disable automatic firmware updates. So it could be if you are the customer, you want to have control. Now it's a new version 49. Maybe you don't want to install it right now before after New Year when you're back, and if you test on other units, for example, you want to have the control. For example, if you're running Windows, they just push out updates and nobody have any control. And even if you delay the updates, many times they just install it, reboot, you lose all your work, everything. Here in the Penetrator, we instead want to give the customer very much control what happened on their network and with their unit. And you can also decide here how many times a day you want to have database updates, daily updates only 1 time a day, weekly, or multiple times every 6 hours by default. Because it's very important to get the latest signature definitions when you are scanning, so you want it to update all the time. And then of course here you can disable the automatic firmware updates, and you can also enable automatic configuration backup. And then of course it will back up your data in the cloud if you want that. And if you don't want that, you can just do the backup yourself once in a while, where you do the backup of the configuration, for example, 1 time a week or 1 time a month, what the policy is at the customer location. We can also take a look right here in the system menu. And here in system menu, you can also enable 2-factor login protection. So on your smartphone, you have Google Authenticator, and this way you can have increased privacy. If somebody even have their password, they cannot log in anyway. You can change different things like how many scans are allowed to be shown on a page, how many rows you want. You actually have a lot of control, how many rows on the tablet. So if you have a lot of scans, let's say you have thousands of scans, you can very easily do management of a lot, so you don't have to scroll so much. So it's actually allowed for the customer to have a lot of control there. You can upload your own SSL certificates, so you make sure you have a valid certificate. This one have to 2022. Maybe you have a wildcard certificate in your business. You can just use that one typically. Another very important thing is you can configure mail sender authentication. So it's very important the penetrator can send you emails, so you get notifications about when scans are finished and vulnerabilities. And of course, you want to make sure sometimes your internet provider only allows you to send via internet provider mail server with authentication. And then you can actually put in here the mail server from the internet provider. You can put the port, different type of authentication required, and you can even send a test email. So you make sure the emails are coming, they're not going in spam, and that the customer really are receiving the mails. So that is also very powerful. We have a support menu right here, and we actually have a very detailed manuals as well. We have almost 200-page manual, and there's coming a new one for 2021. We have detailed installation guide for VMware ESXi, Microsoft, VMware Player. There are different step-by-step installation guide. There's also a setup wizard where it's very easy for the customer to configure everything in 5 steps. And also when it comes to support, we can see just here on the support form, the customer has different areas they can access. Here on the Penetrator, for example, we have many questions being answered. Are there impact when scanning devices? How long time does it take to scan? Can it scan the Internet of Things? Can it do top 10 scans? There are many questions here. For example, how do you deploy on Microsoft Azure? How do you import the images? There are so many. How do you do SSL? Check for expired SSL certificates. There are many customer-related questions. If you do not find your question, you can submit a ticket that goes in the email system. And we also support WhatsApp and Telegram and Skype. Mainly it's WhatsApp and Telegram because many customers, sometimes if you're sending emails, it can be slower and you want a reply, can go a little slower back and forth. Where if you go in WhatsApp and in Telegram, we actually do more support now in WhatsApp and Telegram because customers, they want faster support. When you have a ticketing system, it's more if you have like a new feature request or something where it requires development, then you can have a track of the progress in the ticketing system. But if you just need some help now, how do you configure something, or how do you fix a vulnerability, or how do you verify vulnerability, we actually have support in WhatsApp, Telegram, and also in Skype. So this way the customer can get very fast support. And this is most important for the customer. Also, we can see different things here when we click in the system status indicator right here. We can see important things like system status. Here, the customer can see the system is online, and they can see that the DNS servers are very good. Often, if there is a problem with speed or scanning, it can many times be the customer is using internet providers, DNS servers that are very slow or not responding, and then it will slow down everything. Here, for example, we have the 1111 that are very fast, and the system status can warn the user if there is problem with the accessing update servers or DNS servers. If they're too slow, for example, the system can warn about this. It can also warn if the Linux kernel needs to update, and if there is an issue on the system, if it is getting overloaded, the CPU or hard drive, for example, if it's running out of disk space. So it can actually warn the customer about a lot of details. So again, it runs very easily. And the Penetrator is designed to be very user-friendly, so the customer can do most things, accomplish most things with a less amount of clicks. So we want it to be very easy for the customer to use the Penetrator. And many other cybersecurity systems are overly complicated. You have to read the manual every time. You don't remember how to do things. Here we want to do it as easy as possible for the customer, so they can get their job done very fast and focus on their main business. As we can see just now with the Penetrator version 49, we are rolling out a very big release here. Customers getting new features all the time. For example, now we're getting the autonomous sonar robot. That's a new feature. All existing customers easily can upgrade, get the new feature. The same happened with AI machine learning. Many other products, as you might know, they never do any updates, or you get an update every 6 months, only some security patches, nothing else. You never get new features or anything. In the Penetrator, we many times put out new features, new functionality to the customer, what customers are asking for. For example, the sonar robot, we had specific customer request for this. Some customers asked for this, and that's why we put it in for them. And on the Penetrator, we have very rapid development. So they're already now rolling out version 49, and already they're starting development on version 50. So maybe in 2 months we get version 50, where again the customer will get new features, upgrades. We'll go back here to the, let's see where we have here the changelog here. So, and again here in every firmware update, it's about 20-25 new features. In version 50, again, there will come new features, improvements, scanning options. For example, some of the new things that will come, you can make your own scanning profile, and you can customize the threads in the scanning engine, so it can actually run with multiple threads, not just one connection every time. You can increase how many concurrent connections it can do to a server, and this way you can easily speed up scanning maybe 10 times. It's because in old time, if like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if you did too many connections to a target, you could overload the server. But today in 2020, 2021, customers have very, very powerful servers, quad-core, octa-core, 32 gigabyte of RAM. So performance is going much, much, much higher in the future. And also in the Penetrator, you can utilize more network ports. So we will see a huge increase in performance option for the customer. So the Penetrator gets extremely powerful every time there's a new software update coming out. And also the new thing was that we introduce the new platform right here, so you can easily download for Microsoft Azure. Before we only had Hyper-V, and then the customer had to convert the image themselves. Now they can easily download it to save some time. Yes, so I want to ask if we have any questions, or is everything very clear? Yes, or you can write in the chat. Let's see if we have here in the, let's see if we have the chat right here. Okay, I see some, okay. If you have any questions, you can write in the chat, or you can just ask it. Otherwise, you will get a recording of the meeting after the meeting from Zoom. Yes, or is everything is very clear?